Ez a beszélgetés John Lorddal, a Deep Purple együttes egykori billentyűsével készült 2009. március 2-án Budapesten koncertek előtt. Arra voltam kíváncsi, hogy miért lépett annó az együttesből, a Deep Purple-ből, és miért volt számára a szóló projekt, illetve az elmúlt 40 évben, amióta megírta azt a bizonyos koncertót. We are talking John Lord, who played once in Deep Purple and quit the group in 2002 in Budapest just before the concerts in Műpa and the Millenáris. And the first question would be that what was the idea behind Híradó for group and orchestra back in 1969? And how could you convince Ritchie Blackmore to play together? Because at that time Ritchie wanted to play hard rock music and not classical.
Well, we were both discovering hard rock. One of the misconceptions about my relationship with Ritchie is that he liked the hard rock and I liked the classical, and therefore I was trying to put the two together. I was actually very happy to be in a hard rock band, and we were actually writing songs like Speed King and Child in Time and Living Wreck and so on, all the songs from Deep Purple in rock. We were writing those at the same time, and indeed just before I wrote Concerto. They actually thought it was an okay idea. I went to the rest of the band and said, I'd had this idea and that people were prepared to put it on. We'd found an orchestra and so on, and they said, okay,
Really?
Yeah, we'll give it a try, and of course when we got to the rehearsals we realized that it was a much more difficult project than perhaps they had thought, but it was astonishingly difficult to make it happen in 1969. It's a lot easier now. The attitude of orchestras now is much more open. The attitude of conductors is much more open. The attitude of the orchestral world, the classical music world, is much more open, it seems to me.
I think Concerto was a sort of milestone in British rock music. Could you say that in rock music? Because it was just before the Nice's album The Five Bridges, and it was just a couple of years before Rick Wakeman came over with King Arthur.
Yep.
And the Round Table.
Yes.
So that was a sort of starting point for others who were inventing also in that field.
Well,
was it later inspiring for you that, well, back in '69 that was the best thing what we could do, you see, because everybody is following us?
If I look back, of course, I'm pleased that I opened a door. Some people are not pleased that I opened that door. Rather, that door had stayed shut. But if I look back and see the history of it, yes, of course, I'm pleased. But at the time, I just wanted to say something, about my beliefs, and my beliefs in this world were that music is one big world, and that we should all try and live together in it, and I had this love of classical music and this love of rock music, and let's see what happens if we put them together. And the concerto itself tells that story. It's in 3 movements, and the first movement is just a battle. It's one side saying, like, oh yeah, like, come on then, anything you can do, I can do better. And it's a big fight. The middle movement is an attempt to find some sort of agreement, and when we find the agreement, the last movement is a big shout of happiness, because we've actually learned how to play together. Although we may not do it always, we know we can play together, and so I'll race you to the end. That kind of feeling to it.
You said a couple of times during interviews that you have never ever thought of for 40 years advanced that you will show and play it again in 2009, let's say, the same concerto. And it means that, for me at least, that it's a very, very precious piece of music.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this piece is that although it caused a great deal of argument at the time it was written, and then it wasn't played for 30 years, I think when it was played again in 1999, that audiences and orchestras also began to realize that, you know, this piece has something about it. It has something to say, and I'm now getting phone calls all the time. You know, will you come and play it? You know, in Korea, in Australia,
Sure.
in South America, and that's wonderful. It's because it's found its audience, and people are now fascinated to hear it. People from both sides of the orchestral and rock music world. People are giving it the benefit of the doubt.
You have mentioned that hard rock and the classical music lived together in you as well. How could you describe the solo projects?
My solo project?
Yes.
Well, in a way, they are also...
That is sort of escapes from hard rock?
Yes, it's my escape, in a way. Not that I really want to escape from rock music. I love playing rock music, particularly with...
Just doing something different?
Yes. I mean, to me, I'm just so lucky to be a musician, so lucky to have this great big world to play in, you know, that I want to do as much as I can, you know. I want to work with singers, I want to work with orchestras, I want to work with guitarists, I want to work with drummers. I mean, I'm just eating it up. I mean, I want to be a musician, and I want to explore every side of my musical personality, my musical life. And those two solo albums, the last two, were very different. One was from the mid-90s, was from a very sad part of my life. I mean, my parents had both died within 1 year of each other, and I was getting older, and you sort of see the passage of time, and you think, you know, so I got a bit nostalgic, and I was writing very gentle, quite nostalgic music. And then in 2004 I started to write the next one, and I was more positive and more forward thinking, and now I'm working with that music plus music that I wrote 30 years ago and 40 years ago, all in the same concert with an orchestra. I mean, if God actually asked me what I had wanted to do and gave me a choice, I don't think I would choose anything else. You know, I'm very happy.
Concerning the solo project, why was it so important to commemorate the 175th anniversary of the foundation of the Durham University?
Well, they asked me. A good friend of mine was a student at Durham University when he was a young man, and he was talking to them, and they said, we want to have this anniversary of 175 years. I don't know why they chose 175 and didn't wait until 200, but maybe they wanted me and they couldn't wait another 25 years, you know. So, and so they asked me if I would write something to commemorate this. And I said, what do you want me to write? And they said, anything you like. I said, how about a piece just for orchestra? And they said, sure. How about some soloists? And I said, okay. So we had violin solo, cello, these pipes, these Northumbrian pipes, and I wrote a piece for myself to play the Hammond open. And it was they asked me to write it. They gave me some money very nicely, not a lot, but they gave me, you know, and we recorded it and played the concert in the cathedral in Durham, which is this wonderful 1,000-year-old cathedral. And it was something I wouldn't, if I was still in Deep Purple, I wouldn't have the time to do things like that. So it was another good reason to leave the band.
What motivated you to leave Deep Purple in 2002 after 34 years? Was it just you get fed up? Was enough?
It's it's a good question, and I'm hesitating only because there was a slight element of having had enough. Of course, I look back now and realise how lucky I was to be in such a great band for so many years and to play with such great musicians. But I think I had reached a point in my life where I wanted to do something else. I had been doing this for so long and so with such intensity, you know, we never stopped working. And I was getting these questions asked me, you know, would you like to write this? Would you like to write this? How about a solo album? You know, how about doing the concerto again? So I needed time. I needed to have the space, the personal space.
You just said, just look, Guy, that was it. Thank you very much.
What I did first was I actually went to the rest of the band and said, can we take a year off? You know.
But you had 8 years off.
Yeah. Well, that was before.
Back in
that,
'76.
But then I went and joined another band. I joined Whitesnake.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but
I mean, you know, I couldn't stay at home. Unlike Ian Gillan. Ian Gillan would loves to live his life on a tour bus. That's what he, you know, that's where he's happiest. So I just, I said to them, can we take a year off? They said, well, not really. We like to work. And I said, okay, then I have to give you my notice. And 6 months later, I left. But we left really good friends. And we are still, I mean, these are my dear, dear friends. And they are friends for life. They are dear, dear friends.
Last question. How are you going to build up the Budapest concerts?
How?
How you build up? What are the elements of the concert?
Well,
concerto.
Yeah, we have
All Deep Purple.
We have concerto in the first half. Then the second half is a mixture of some of my solo pieces, from some just for voice and piano and orchestra, some with voice and guitar and bass and drums and orchestra, some with just instrumentals. And then I do two Deep Purple songs, which two of my favorites, which I did the arrangements for. One is called Pictures of Home, which is from Machine Head. It's about a story about being up in the mountains and getting lost. And the other is, I suppose, perhaps the most controversial song we ever wrote. Not the most famous. The most famous is probably Smoke on the Water, but I think the next most famous is Child. And this song it's very important to me. It's a big song. It's a very powerful.
It is indeed
song, and I like to finish the show with this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for talking.